They threw me a 50th birthday in the backyard, folding chairs, day-old pizza, and a gift card with my name misspelled. At one point, my brother laughed. Half a century and still nothing to show for it. I still grilled, took photos, and smiled for the grandkids. Nobody noticed I wasn't in a single group shot. Nobody asked where I went afterward. 3 weeks later, they finally found the letter I'd left on the kitchen table. I, 50M, have spent 30 years being the backbone of my family. Not because anyone asked me to, because I just was. That's how it worked. Someone needed money. I wrote the check. Someone needed a ride at 2 a.m. I was already putting my shoes on. Someone needed a cosigner, a babysitter, a place to crash for a few weeks that turned into 7 months. I was the guy. Always the guy, and I never kept score. That was the thing. I genuinely believed that family was family, and you didn't keep receipts on people you loved. I believed that for a very long time. My 50th birthday broke something in me that I didn't even know could break. My wife had been talking about the party for weeks. She kept saying she had it handled, told me not to worry about a thing. I figured maybe she was planning something nice. We'd been married 22 years. I'd thrown her a surprise 40th at a rented vineyard with 60 people, a live band, and a custom cake shaped like the bookstore she'd always dreamed of opening. Cost me almost $4,000. I didn't care. She cried when she walked in, and that was worth every cent. So when my 50th came around, yeah, I had some expectations. Not a vineyard, not a band, just something that said, "We see you." The morning of, she told me the party would be in the backyard. I asked what time people were coming, and she said around 4. I asked if she needed help setting up, and she kind of shrugged and said she'd already asked my brother and my sister to bring some stuff. That was it. No excitement in her voice. No secrecy. No sparkle. Just logistics. I walked into the backyard at 3:45 and saw 6 folding chairs, the rusty ones from the garage, arranged in a loose circle around our plastic patio table. There was a balloon arch, except it wasn't really an arch, more like a drooping string of mismatched balloons taped to the fence. The tablecloth was from my daughter's graduation party 2 years ago. I know because it still had the stain from when my nephew knocked over the punch bowl. The food was pizza. Not fresh pizza. Leftover pizza from the night before, when my wife had ordered too much for her book club. I saw the boxes stacked on the counter when I walked through the kitchen. Same boxes. Same pizza. She hadn't even reheated it. I stood there for a second, and I felt this weird tightness in my chest. Not anger yet. More like confusion. Like I was looking at a set for someone else's party, and I'd accidentally walked onto the wrong stage. People started showing up. My brother came with his wife and their 2 kids. My sister drove in from 40 minutes away and spent the first 20 minutes on her phone. My mother sat in one of the folding chairs and complained about the heat. My 2 adult kids showed up late. My son with his girlfriend, my daughter with her husband, and my 2 grandkids. Nobody hugged me when they arrived. A few said happy birthday in passing, the way you'd say bless you after a sneeze. My wife handed me a gift card from a home improvement store. It had my name on it, except it didn't. It said, "Happy birthday, Jerry." My name isn't Jerry. It's not even close to Jerry. She said the cashier must have written it wrong, and she didn't notice. She didn't offer to fix it. She didn't laugh about it. She just handed it to me and walked away to talk to my sister. My brother pulled me aside around 5. He had a beer in his hand, and that grin he always gets when he's about to say something he thinks is clever. He told me happy half-century, and then he laughed and said something about how I'd hit 50 and still had nothing to show for it. He said it like it was a joke. He clapped me on the back and walked off. Nothing to show for it. I paid off his car loan in 2014. I co-signed his first apartment. I gave him $11,000 when his wife needed surgery and their insurance wouldn't cover it. I never asked for a cent back. Nothing to show for it. I stood at the grill because nobody else was going to. I cooked burgers and hot dogs for 15 people while they sat around and talked to each other. My grandkids ran around the yard, and I smiled every time they came near me. My daughter asked me to take a photo of her and her husband. Then my son wanted one with his girlfriend. Then my wife wanted a group shot with the kids and grandkids. I held the phone every single time. When they did the group photo, the big one, everyone together, the one that would end up on social media, I was behind the camera. Nobody said, "Wait, get in here." Nobody handed the phone to someone else so I could be included. I took the picture, gave the phone back, and went back to the grill. I looked through every photo later that night. I wasn't in a single one. Not one. 50 years old, my own birthday party, and there wasn't a single piece of evidence I'd been there. Nobody sang. There was no cake. Around 7, people started leaving. My brother left first. He didn't say goodbye. My mother told me to drive her home and complained about the food on the way. My kids hugged me on the way out. Quick, distracted hugs, the kind you give when you're already thinking about where you're going next. My wife started cleaning up the backyard, and when I asked if she needed help, she told me I could take the trash out. So I took the trash out. I stood in the driveway next to the bins, and I looked up at the sky, and something just clicked into place. Not rage, not sadness, just clarity. Cold, clean, absolute clarity. I was done. I didn't do anything dramatic that night. I went to bed. My wife was already asleep by the time I came in. I lay in the dark and I made a plan. Not an emotional plan. Not a revenge fantasy. A real, structured, step-by-step plan. See, what nobody in my family knew was that I'd been smart with money my whole life. Not flashy smart. Quiet smart. I'd been putting money into investments since I was 23. I owned 2 rental properties under an LLC that nobody knew about. I had a retirement account that I never talked about. After 30 years of being the family ATM, I'd still managed to build something real. Something just for me. Because deep down, maybe I always knew this day was coming. The following Monday, I called a lawyer. Not a divorce lawyer, not yet. An estate lawyer. I wanted to understand exactly what I was entitled to, what was in my name, what was protected, and what would happen if I simply walked away. Turns out, a lot of what I'd built was legally mine. The rental properties were in the LLC. My retirement accounts were individual. The house was joint, but I'd been making the payments alone for 22 years, and I had every record to prove it. I spent the next 3 weeks getting my affairs in order. I didn't act differently. I still cooked dinner. Still asked my wife about her day. Still called my kids on Sundays. Still answered my brother's texts when he needed something, which he did twice in those 3 weeks. But I was moving pieces. Quietly. Carefully. I set up a new bank account at a different bank. I rerouted my direct deposits. I quietly moved my personal savings. I updated the beneficiaries on my life insurance, removed my wife, added my grandkids into a trust. I talked to my tenants and made sure the rental income was flowing into the right accounts. I packed a bag and left it in the trunk of my car. I rented a small furnished apartment 30 minutes away under my LLC. And I wrote the letter. The letter wasn't long. I'm not a writer. I'm a mechanic by trade, and I've run my own shop for 18 years. I don't do flowery language. I wrote what I meant, and I meant what I wrote. I told them I was leaving. I told them why. I told them that I'd spent 30 years being the man who showed up, who paid, who carried, who grilled, who drove, who fixed, who listened, who helped, who sacrificed, and that on my 50th birthday, the people I did all of it for couldn't even spell my name right on a gift card. I told them I wasn't angry. I told them I was tired. There's a difference, and I needed them to understand that. Anger fades. Tiredness doesn't. Tiredness is what happens when you've been carrying a weight so long that your body just decides to put it down whether you want to or not. I told my wife that I loved her once and that I wasn't sure when I stopped, but I think it was long before the party. The party just made it impossible to pretend anymore. I told her I'd be fair in the divorce, and I meant it. I told my kids that I would always be their father and that my door would always be open. But I told them that I needed them to come to me because they wanted to, not because they needed something. I told them I couldn't remember the last time either of them called me just to talk. I told my brother that I forgave him for what he said. And then I listed every dollar I'd ever given him and told him I forgave that too. I told him he didn't owe me money. He owed me respect, and he'd never paid that debt once. I told my mother that I was sorry I wasn't the son she wanted. I told her I tried. I left the letter on the kitchen table under the salt shaker. And I walked out. Update 1. 3 weeks after I left. Nobody found the letter for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I know because my daughter finally called me, and she was hysterical. She told me they'd been wondering why I wasn't answering my phone. I'd changed my number the day I left, but I'd left the new one in the letter. They didn't have the new number because they hadn't read the letter. Because nobody moved the salt shaker for 21 days. Let that sink in. I disappeared from my own life, and it took my family 3 weeks to even look for me. And they only started looking because my wife needed me to sign something for the insurance. My daughter was crying and asking me where I was and what happened. I told her calmly that everything she needed to know was in the letter and that I loved her, but I wasn't coming back. She asked me what that meant, and I told her it meant exactly what it sounded like. She got angry then, said I was being selfish, said I was abandoning the family. I listened. I didn't argue. When she was done, I told her I'd be here whenever she wanted to talk, but I was done explaining myself to people who hadn't been listening for 30 years. My son called the next day. He was quieter about it. He asked me if I was okay. That was the first time in a long time one of my kids asked me that, and actually waited for the answer. I told him I was better than I'd been in years. He didn't say much after that. He just said he'd call again. He did. He called 3 days later. My wife didn't call for a week after they found the letter. When she finally did, she was furious. She told me I had no right to leave like that, no right to move money, no right to change my number. I told her I had every right and that my lawyer would be in touch. She went quiet after that. My brother called once. He tried to make a joke. He said something about me being dramatic and having a midlife crisis. I hung up. He called back. I didn't answer. He texted me a few days later saying he was sorry about the birthday comment. I didn't respond. My mother told my sister to tell me I was breaking her heart. My sister relayed the message. I told my sister to tell my mother that I spent 50 years trying not to do that, and it didn't seem to matter either way. Update 2. 2 months later. I filed for divorce. My wife contested it at first, but when her lawyers saw the financials, she backed down. I was more than fair. I gave her the house. I gave her half of the joint savings. I kept my retirement accounts, my LLC, and my rental properties, all of which were legally mine. She got the car, the furniture, everything in the house. I didn't fight over a single fork. She told my daughter I was being cold and calculated. My daughter called me and asked me if that was true. I told her I wasn't being cold. I was being clear. There's a difference. The shop was doing well. Better, actually, because I was focused. I wasn't spending my evenings worrying about everyone else's problems. I was sleeping through the night for the first time in years. I joined a gym. I started cooking real meals for myself, not reheating leftovers. I started reading again. I sat on the porch of my apartment in the evenings, and I just breathed. My son started visiting. Every other Sunday, he'd drive out, and we'd have lunch. He didn't ask for money. He didn't need me to fix anything. He just sat across from me and talked. Told me about his job, his girlfriend, his plans. He asked me about mine. Those lunches became the best part of my week. My daughter came around slower. She was angry for a while, and I understood that. But eventually she called, and we talked, really talked, for the first time in years. She told me she didn't realize how much I'd been doing until I stopped doing it. She said the family had kind of fallen apart since I left. Nobody was organizing holidays. Nobody was calling anyone. Without me holding everything together, they all just drifted. I told her that wasn't my problem to fix anymore. She didn't like hearing that. But she didn't hang up. My brother's wife called me around this time. She was crying. She told me that my brother hadn't been the same since I left. That he kept rereading the letter, especially the part where I listed every dollar. She said he was ashamed, but too proud to say it. I told her I appreciated her calling, but that my brother was a grown man, and he could pick up the phone himself if he had something to say. He never did. Update 3. 6 months later. The divorce was final. Clean split. No drama in court. My wife moved on faster than I expected, or maybe she'd checked out long before I did. Either way, I wished her well. I meant it. I sold one of the rental properties and used the money to take a trip. First real vacation I'd taken in 15 years. I drove down the coast, stopped wherever I wanted, ate at places I found along the way, slept in motels with bad Wi-Fi and good silence. I sent my grandkids postcards from every stop. They sent me voice messages back. Those little voices were the only thing that made me cry during the whole process. My son came with me for part of the trip. He flew down and met me in a small coastal town, and we spent 4 days fishing and not talking about anything heavy. It was the closest I'd felt to him since he was a kid. On the last night, he told me he was sorry. I asked him what for, and he said for not seeing it. For not noticing. I told him he was here now, and that was enough. My daughter invited me to Thanksgiving. I went. It was small. Just her husband, the grandkids, and me. No brother. No mother. No wife. Just us. She made turkey, and it was overcooked, and the stuffing was dry, and the rolls were burnt. It was the best Thanksgiving I'd ever had. Because she made it for me. Because I was at the table, not behind the camera. She took a photo of all of us after dinner. She set the timer on the phone and propped it up on the shelf and ran back to squeeze in next to me. I was in the center of the frame. My granddaughter was on my lap. My grandson was making a face. My daughter was laughing. I printed that photo. It's on my wall. I'm writing this because someone in a group I joined suggested I share my story. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm not even looking for people to tell me I did the right thing. I know I did. I feel it every morning when I wake up, and the first thought in my head isn't who needs something from me today. Here's what I'll say to anyone reading this who feels invisible in their own family. You're not crazy. You're not ungrateful. You're not selfish for wanting to be seen by the people you've spent your entire life showing up for. And you're not wrong for walking away when you realize they never will. The folding chairs and the cold pizza and the misspelled gift card. Those weren't the reasons I left. They were just the last things I was willing to ignore. The reason I left was the 30 years underneath all of that. The silence. The assumptions. The way they all looked right through me like I was a function, not a person. Pour the drinks, hold the camera, pay the bill, carry the weight. And do it all with a smile so nobody has to feel bad about letting you. I don't have a folding chair anymore. I have a porch with a rocking chair that I bought for myself. It's nothing fancy, but when I sit in it, nobody asks me to get up. That's enough. That's more than enough.